Welcome everyone to episode 16 of the Summer Split EUphoria podcast. My name is Vedius. I'm joined by Dagda, and today's special guest is none other than Jankos to talk things all about our league and some really fun stuff about himself.
Yeah, you can find our episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And today we got to chat to him a bit about his career, kind of the highs and lows and everything in between, and then get his take on what's happening in the LEC.
And of course, this episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. If you're interested in Express, you can head over to expressvpn.com/LEC and claim your free 14-day free trial. So make sure you don't waste that opportunity and get there right now. Let's head into the podcast. Welcome, Jankos. Welcome, Dagda, to this week's episode of the podcast. Jankos is taking a breather, so I'm here subbing in for him today, and
Valorant stole him.
Yeah, they kind of did. He's working a lot of days right now, and he's playing a different game this week. So for now, you've got me, you've got Dagda, and you've got Jankos. And Jankos, super excited to have you on the podcast with us. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, my man?
Hello, everybody. I'm feeling pretty good. I thought that Jankos just hates me. That's why he left. Apparently, he's working on a different game, so at least there's that.
He hates you so much, he actually had to shift games to get away
it's
from
true.
you.
It's true.
Oh my God, man. He heard about me coming to a podcast and he just straight up started working on Valorant. God damn.
All right, so Jankos, for fans that maybe haven't been keeping up with what you've been doing, give us a quick summary of what you're up to these days and where people can find you if they want to still engage with your stuff.
Okay, well, currently I'm a co-streamer for Navi. As you can see, I'm wearing a Navi merch, so I'm co-streaming all of the LEC games, not just Navi games, but all of them. I'll also be most likely co-streaming all the international tournaments this year. I have been doing that so far as well, mostly on Twitch TV/Jankos. Besides it, I'm also competing in the NLC, the same league as Los Ratons. The famous Los Ratons, that's why I'm mentioning them, I guess, are competing as well. That league is finishing on 30th of August. That would be the final, I think. But this week we're also facing LR in the upper bracket finals. Or not finals, just like a game. But yeah, basically NLC and co-streaming is the two gigs that I'm currently doing.
God damn. And how are you managing the time, Jankos? That feels like a lot of having your resources divided between all this co-streaming and also the playing. How are you experiencing that right now?
I think it's not that bad. I feel like co-streaming itself is not super taxing for somebody that's been keeping up with League for so many years anyway. And LEC is only on the weekends. Maybe in the future, I will try to co-stream LCK, and then it might be a little bit more taxing, as LCK, I believe it happens, I think 5 days a week, no?
Yeah.
They do like all the way from Wednesday to Sunday. So then that would be taxing. But NLC happens only like once a week as well. We have some scrims going on and stuff. But yeah, I mean, my schedule is busy. I do have only 1 day off a week, and I do stream sometimes from like 8 to 10 hours a day. But it's fine. Putting it aside, I was streaming 12 hours a day. It was insane. I was starting at like 6 p.m. in Europe time and finishing 6, 7 a.m. Europe time. That was taxing. That was like very tough 2 weeks, I'm not gonna lie.
God damn. And you watched all of that just to watch us suck internationally, so that must have...
Yeah, I watched all of that just to witness Europe getting destroyed by everybody. It was disgusting, but at least the tournament itself was super fun to watch.
All right, so with that in mind, obviously one day you're going to come and save us by returning to pro play and creating a super team once more. But talk to us a little bit about like what your plans are for the future. Can you tell us a little bit about like what you want to be doing? Is content creation the direction? Do you still want to be competing? Because right now, as you just explained, you're kind of doing a bit of both right now. Is there something that you really want to commit to? Is there some sort of long-term vision for Jankos?
I think it's very hard for me to say right now. I feel like the reason why I didn't join LEC in 2025, now we have, many years, is because I was burned out. And even though I had offers, I had offer for Navi, right? Like Navi did offer me a spot in the main roster to play with them. But I just feel like I was quite burned out this year. And I felt like I don't really want to return to LEC if I wouldn't give it my 150%. So this is the reason why I didn't sign with any of the teams. And the reason why I'm committing in NLC is because I thought it's going to be fun to show people how it is to compete and stream scrims and kind of see how it is inside of the team. Unfortunately, Kadral and the crew had like a very similar idea in the same year. So they got everybody to tune in to Los Ratons, and now any other streamer team is pretty much dead. So that didn't really work out in the long term sort of thing, because that started already in January in different teams. Which basically means that next year I'm most likely gonna focus more on content creation, doing more co-streams, and just figure out ways to stay connected to League of Legends, but just bring audience overall to like new audience potentially to my co-streams and to my streams.
Okay, but it's cool to hear that you still.
But I don't have I don't have an active plan on returning to tier 1 pro play. At least for now, we will see what happens.
And do you find that kind of the passion has come back now, so to speak, after doing more of the co-streaming? Because I find that there is obviously a very different style in how you interact with the game when you're a pro player versus just being able to watch all the regions, kind of have a bit more fun with it.
Well, I do think that it'll be nice to come back and save Europe, right? Because clearly our region is not doing very well. But I didn't have the best 2 years in Heretics when it comes to results. And I think that curbed my confidence a lot, right? So that also made me feel more tired, I guess, of playing League for, 10, 15 years at that point. So I'm still very passionate about the game. I still really enjoy playing the game. I have a lot of fun in solo queue, even though it's not a very competitive environment. I feel like the game can be fun if you just try to make it fun instead of always trying to like build or play in the most optimal way. So I still find it fun to watch the games. I still find it fun to co-stream the games, all of the international games, all of the European games, most likely Korean games as well in the future. So this is the path that I believe I will follow, at least for now. I wish that Europe was a bit better, and I wish that it will be more competitive internationally, but hopefully somebody is going to save us. If it's not going to be me, maybe it's going to be somebody else.
We can definitely talk about that a little bit later, but it's kind of to round out a little bit about you, and I know the community has some questions as well. Like, hearing what you're talking about now and thinking back on your career, kind of how do you see your career? Because obviously no one really plans for when they're going to end things, or like in terms of playing at the highest level. And I imagine making that decision and choosing to stop, even when burnout was a factor, must have been a difficult one for you. But when I think of Jankos as a player, like, he was one of the greatest that Europe ever saw. Like, he brought us an international title. He won multiple domestic titles. I'm curious as to how you look at your career and kind of your thoughts as you kind of move into content creation.
That's a good question. I haven't really gave it a deep thought yet, because since I'm still in the League ecosystem, I still feel like I'm part of things.
Yeah.
And I haven't been attending international events since 2022 G2, right? As in Heretics, we didn't do so well.
Right.
So I was still watching a lot of them. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I do feel like I miss competing. I do feel like there is a legacy that I've built over my career overall. And I think what I miss most is just being able to step on the international stage and compete against the best in the world. But you cannot really do that without being good domestically. And everybody's fighting for that chance to be there at Worlds, to be there at the MSI, to be there at First and Tournament nowadays. But not every team can get there. And whenever Europe gets there, it's not looking very hot. So I hope that, for the sake of my legacy, for the sake of Europe being strong back in the day, when we had a strong Fnatic back in 2018, when we had strong G2 back in 2019, I hope that European teams can overall step it up, and I can still be proud of my region while just watching it. But when I focus only on myself, on my career itself, when I turn the last chapter, it's gonna be most likely me leaving League as a whole and not just me leaving pro play, because I still feel like even though you are not an active pro player, you are still connected to the ecosystem, and it still feels like I'm part of things without actually being there on stage. So I'm still really enjoying watching the game and just, cheering for a region or cheering for the teams I like from outside of Europe.
Hell yeah, that's a really great perspective. So I appreciate that, Jankos. So the community had a bunch of questions. Some of them are nicer than others. Some of them are pretty heavy. And some of them kind of play on the past along with kind of where we're at right now. So the first question comes from @Anna B Mitra 301. Let's hope I got that right. To Jankos, you have played jungler with both perks and caps. What are the main differences or similarities you found while jungling with them? And as a follow-up question, is there any other mid laner in LEC currently that matches up to their playstyle, comms, or thought process? So the first question is basically, what was it like jumping with Perks and Caps? Yeah.
Okay, I feel like Caps was more... Okay, so let's start with Perks, I guess, because I prefer with Perks first. I feel like Perks was a mid laner that had a very clear idea on how he wants the game to be played and how he envisions his laning phase to be and how he can call out different aspects of the game, wherever he needs help or if he doesn't need help, and what lane he wants to take care of. I feel like at least for laning phase itself, I feel like Caps was very quiet, especially in scrims. I don't think he communicated as much as Perks did. Sometimes you just have to look at him more because he wouldn't talk as much. But I do feel like Caps was more lane dominant than Perks was. Perks did have like certain matchups that he was very, very much excelling at. Caps was more of a guy who would just pick a champion and you would just trust him because you would know that he's gonna do well on it. Meanwhile, Perks was way more calculated, way more focused on like matchup practice and understanding his matchups and just like doing good in them. Caps was more of like I wouldn't say like a guy who just picks stuff and makes it work, but it kind of looked like that, you know. Of course, he practiced things in scrims, but we have the very famous clip from him saying, "Dylan, this is a Vayne game, right?" Caps is just that kind of a guy. When he feels like the champion is good, he can pick it and he can do well with it. Even though in some of these cases it didn't work, and I remember when he became an AD carry for a while, we actually like had to very strictly play around him. Otherwise, he would actually just die a lot on AD carry. Like, he would put himself in places where AD carry just can't put himself in. But I think both of them had a lot of strength as mid laners and at their peaks at least, right? Of course, Caps is still going strong. Perks are tired, so right now you cannot compare them. But at their peak, I think they were very. I mean, both of them were like very, very, very much top tier. And both of them were very pleasant to play with. Caps just because of his prowess and game understanding as well. And a lot of, I guess, he had a lot of like these key moments, key factors where he could step up. And for Perks, because of how calculated he was. And honestly, he could also step up in these like very stressful, important moments in games. As of LEC mid lanes that can reach sorry, Dagda.
I was just going to briefly, I've always been curious for a jungler where your mid laner just brings out some wonky pick that you're not expecting. Like, what is it that goes through your head in that moment? Because is it like Vayne comes out and you're like, I have no idea when I'm supposed to gank. I have no idea if you have push. I have no idea if I'm going to get what is that moment that goes through your head where you're just like, oh my God, he's done it again.
I mean, with Caps, honestly, I don't know. I think he just makes it work, right? So sometimes, like I mentioned, he wouldn't really talk to me always in stage game scrims, but sometimes I would just like specifically look at the mid lane a lot because I knew that he's gonna be fighting, he's gonna be trading, he's gonna be skill checking, and whenever that skill check would work out, you could just get a free kill, right? So I think you would trust him. He's type of a person who is very joyful and very cheerful, at least on his good days, which is 99% of them. So I feel like he is fun to be around and he really enjoys playing the game. At least that's how I remember him. Maybe, times changed. Sometimes when I look at his face nowadays, maybe he also understands that, our region is not doing as well as it used to. But at least back in the day, you would just, you couldn't like resist that like cheerful smile and saying, please lock me Vayne or lock me Zoe or lock me whatever else. Or, in the finals against FPX, you just locked in Pyke without prior talking to anybody. He just locks in Pyke. Yeah, sure, that time it didn't work out, but, other times it did. So you just trust people like that. He plays the game 12 hours a day. So how can you not trust him?
So the follow-up question to that was, is there any other mid laner in the LEC currently that matches up to their playstyles or thought processes? So is there anyone you think?
I mean, so it's very difficult to say because I haven't played with all of the LEC mid laners in the team, right? I have had experience playing with Caps and I've had experience playing with Perks. I haven't really played with Jojopyun, but it seems to me like he's very talented and very strong mechanically. He did have his ints in Winter Split, but I feel like MKOI really brought it back in Spring, and he was very, very strong and he looked good. And he also seems like a fun guy to be around. And I think these kind of people are just very easy to work with because they're easygoing. And then another guy is Vladi. And I think that makes sense because I would put Vladi and Jojo like up there with Caps, you know what I mean? Maybe not like the same legacy and the same level of play, but they are competing to be the best in the league, for the mid lane spot, at least my opinion. So maybe Jojo has like more end games, so to speak, and Vladi showed up big time in Winter Split, and I think he was a big reason why KC won the Winter Split. And then they had some similar issues that they're showing right now in Spring, but I feel like Vladi as well. I had experience playing with him a little bit in Champs Queue and in some like team games, and I think he also is very cheerful. He also has like a very clear idea, and he likes to skill check people. So if I had to predict one strictly European mid laner that can be up there with like the legends of, I guess, Xpeke, if we want to mention his name, or Caps or Perks or so on, that can bring trophies to us, I think it would be Vladi. I definitely have a lot of hope in him growing and being strong.
Not going to give a shout out to your old man Overpow?
Overpow? Overpow is not a name. He was great when he was still playing, but that was a long time ago. And I guess honorable mentions would be like Poby and MKOI's mid laner Jojo. But Jojo is Canadian and Poby is Korean, and they do look. I just don't know if I should be mentioning them as like someone who can carry. I mean, they are playing in Europe, right? So they can, like, if Poby stays for the next 5 years, if he grows, and same to Jojo, then I'm sure they can do a lot for a region. But I expect Vladi to stay in KC for a very long time, and I do expect KC to make use of him. So I'm the most excited about Vladi.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we got another question from, I'm going to butcher this one as well, Christian Dalgard 3419. Thank you for your question. To Jankos, why do you think the trio OGU, Wonder, and Perks couldn't find the same success on Heretics as you had on G2?
I feel like we grew apart when it comes to playing the game as like. All of us were on a little bit of a different page when it comes to playing the game when we joined Heretics. And I think it took us a while to start to be on the same page slowly. And that happened maybe in Spring. But then Zvyro came to the team, right? And I don't want to get into details because that was discussed a lot and it is what it is. But I feel like we needed more time to really, I suppose, do better. But we didn't necessarily get the time. At the same time, I'm not sure what was our potential back then, because League as a whole improved a lot since 2018. Like the core trio in G2 in 2018 did well, but the game changed so much and I think in 2018, the strength we had was our 1-3-1. Kjarn and Wadid were very important in that roster, but also I feel like Wunder and Perks had a very clear understanding on how to play 1-3-1 comps and how to sidelane well. And I think this is something that all the teams improved on, but also the game became more and more team focused every single patch we have. And right now, you see tanks being picked everywhere, right? The game is purely about grouping and contesting all the objectives. There is so many of them. There's dragons, there's grabs, there is Atakan, there is Herald, and there is 5 more dragons. So we didn't have the same strength as we used to. And we didn't. I think time is an excuse. I also felt like we didn't have the same amount of hunger. Right. And I'm not calling anyone specifically. You can include me in it. We just didn't have the same amount of drive as we did in 2018. So you can say we are washed, basically.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's fair enough. So quickly moving on to the next question. If you could, hang on, I should @sinister_INJN. IN. Yeah, thank you for your question. If you could change one decision in your career, what would it be? I told you some of these were heavy. So if you could change one decision in your career, what would it be?
I don't know, man. I mean, there's some things I change for sure, but one decision, there's so many of them.
Is it perhaps one of the drafts during the FPX World Finals? Maybe one of those?
I don't know if that would be... Okay. Honestly, from the FPX, okay, sure. If I had one regret about that one, is not picking Olaf in the first 3, because that was the only champion that we would win with in scrims against FPX, as our win rate against them was like maybe 10-20%.
Oh my goodness.
But whenever I played Olaf, it was actually good against their level 1 invading that just screw us over in the series itself as well. So, and it was good against their mid lane champion pool. So I felt like that was maybe a champion that could work, and they would always ban it in the 4-5 and we would never get to pick it. But I was just too like cocky, saying you guys can pick whatever else and I will just pick jungle later, because I thought it's just not gonna make a difference. In hindsight, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I'm not sure if it would. Honestly, we got 3-0 right, so you know how it is. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely not something I necessarily regret too much.
Okay.
But you brought out of PX, so I gave that example. I do regret some other things, but it's not something that I think I want to go into details of because we could be talking the whole night. You know,
That's
there's like a lot of
fair.
things that I'll probably change in my career.
Okay. So there's a list which maybe when you do decide to depart from League, we can get the Jankos Dunzo manifesto.
Let's change it a little bit. What's the thing you're most proud of in your career?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Make it positive.
Probably MSI 2019. I think we had a pretty good run and we won the finals, so that was easy, I guess. But also, I think my performance in semifinals 2016 at Worlds.
Yeah.
That was my first international tournament, and I think I had like a really, really good showing, so that was very fun as well. And I guess winning against RNG in 2018 was also like up there for sure.
That's fair, man. Also, I mean, the one I actually remember, which it wasn't even international. It was like your first title, I want to say, domestically, where you beat Fnatic. I remember you were so excited, you jumped up and you fainted. Do you remember that one? You were so excited.
Yeah, that was but that was, I don't think that's the first
I don't think that was your first one either. I just remember that moment.
But I do remember, because it was a banger BO5, right?
Yes.
I think it was, I don't remember exactly what
It
what
may
was
have been
that Fnatic
Athens
roster, but I do
even. But I don't remember.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane game. It was a BO5, and I just remember screaming so hard on top of my lungs that I just lost consciousness, and I couldn't. I knew that I could still see in front of my eyes. There is like a lot of clips of this in the internet, but then I remember just falling and I couldn't, like my feet couldn't hold me. And now I'm just like afraid. What if like when people get older and older, and then at some point this happens to them and it's like just a thing that happens because, your health is not as good.
Yeah.
I was there already. God damn, it's scary. God damn, it's scary. It was the first time it happened to me and I just couldn't hold my body still.
damn.
I just started falling. I was like, what is going on? So yeah, that was crazy.
Oh my goodness, that was crazy, man. Yeah, those are some good memories. All right, now we gotta get real, Jankos. We got to talk about this day and age. Okay, so from @Wolf Tager, I want to say that's an Irish word.
Don't think so, but
the question is to Jankos: do you think there is a realistic chance for Europeans? For a European team to make a deep run at Worlds again, like Fnatic in 2018 or G2 in 2019? Or do we have to accept that something like that will never happen again? That EU might never reach a final at MSI or Worlds?
Well,
okay, there's a lot of problems because I think I will always be, I'm a type of a guy who is coping a lot.
Hell yeah.
optimistic.
So I'm going to cope that we can do it.
Yes.
I'm going to cope that KC is going to step up. MKOI is going to step up. We're going to have like a banger finals. G2 is still up there, Poby is going to lead Fnatic to be insane.
Hell
and then
yes.
3 of these teams, 3 or 4 are going to go to Worlds and then they will push each other to their limits. And then suddenly, like Cabs just awakens inner demons in 1v9 games against Chovy. Yeah. All dreams and memes, right? So I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope we can do it. Realistically, we are pretty bad right now. We are not even winning FlyQuest, which in all respect is a good team. But, we can't even beat an A at this point. And MKOI has looked pretty bad internationally every time MKOI has looked pretty poorly internationally every time they have went there. And then KC looked pretty good at first stand, but then they didn't even make MSI. And then G2 is like, not very hot at MSI at least. So I'm hoping we can do damage, but to say we are going to reach semifinals and finals in this format, which I don't know how the world format is going to be this year, but when we had group stage, at least one team would always make it out because the first European seed would be competing in BO1s against NA or Wildcard. So we could at least make it in top 2 in the group.
Yeah.
But right now the format is very brutal, and you have to face you have to play BO3s and BO5s against strong teams no matter what, and they are gonna be either from your own region, or from NA, or from EU, or from Korea. And you have to actually be a good team, right? You cannot rely on luck. Yep. You have to be a good team. And I suppose
whoa. Hang on. I'm going to fight against that because NA last year never let it down that they qualified for the quarterfinals. FlyQuest beat Team Liquid to get there, bro. G2 had to fight against BLG. Like, what are we saying?
Okay, you can get lucky, but then FlyQuest had a game against GNG, and then they actually took it to 5 games, but they still lost, and they gave hope. And Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that we reach quarters and we make it competitive, and that's gonna be a win for me for this year at least, and then hopefully over time it's gonna get better. But to say that Europe is gonna go to make it to the finals this year is to me that's just it's too hard of a copy. That's just delusional at this point.
In your eyes, what do you think the biggest difference is? Like, if you could pick one thing that you think we could fix in Europe to make us competitive, what do you think it would be? Or do you think there's just too many small things that are adding up?
I mean, do you know this copy pasta of like Europe? Let's just, insert a team name, but Europe is good at this. They just need to fix team fighting, positioning, laning. Yeah, exactly. So that is what we lack. I don't think it's one small thing. I think it's like a lot of little details. Maybe one guy is going to lane a bit, like especially top laners in Europe. I feel like our best top laner is Kana, and he's Korean, and then there's like Bibi and Mirwin, but I think Kana has been consistently the best. And Poby came in, and suddenly, to me, he looks like a top 3, top 4 mid laner in Europe out of a sudden. And he probably still has some sort of a language barrier, but he's just so mechanically solid and laning solid and teamfight solid. And like, he's not like, wow, but he's like doing everything so good. Yeah. So he's just that insane already. So yeah, I mean, we just act. I don't want to be a doomer, but that is not one thing. No,
I get you. And I mean,
everything.
Like it's kind of on the teams to make us believe again, I feel, because right now we're the 5th best region, and our job isn't to fix their problems. It's just to tell the world all of our problems that we have. But let's not doom for too long. Let's talk about week 1, Jankos. Let's talk about what we've seen so far. And
so we are going back to dooming after all.
No. We're gonna start with Poby, the man, the myth, the legend. Yeah. So Fnatic, they made the roster change. Obviously, we were all a little bit skeptical. And I'll give you a bit of a breather, Jankos, because we've been asking you a ton of questions. Dagda, let's start with you. Poby, what are our initial thoughts?
Poby's a beast.
Yeah,
I am so glad that this man has arrived in Europe. Like, genuinely, I think we needed something that's a bit more refreshing, and it's the fact that we can kind of see him across multiple different champions, right? Like, he looked really good in the Annie. The confidence that he has to just be like, I'm going to pull the trigger and make this play that's going to be the flash engage that turns the whole game around is exactly what you need out of someone like that. But even then on the Yone today as well, he could just show, hey, I can be a massive carry. I have these phenomenal Yone ults that are hitting 3 people in the early stages and just win the game outright. So I love that he is confident, that he's kind of just willing to say, right, lads, I'm carrying now. Get the F onto my back here. And then the fact that he's able to play multiple styles, it feels like he's only going to, as Jankos was already kind of saying, grow with time. As his English gets better, he gets used and synergizes more with the team. Like, I am really, really excited for this guy.
All right, Jankos, go ahead. Tell us, sing the praises of Poby.
No, I mean, absolutely. I think he's a beast. I think his team fighting is insane. I think he was the first Orianna in LEC who went Ludens Echo into Shadowflame into Voice Tap, which is actually a damage build.
Yes.
I saw Jackie's build, I think Seraph's and Dark.
Yeah. Yes,
the torch item. And then I saw him combo 3 people and do 20% of the health. And I just couldn't believe that we can't even build properly. We are losing to Shopkeeper. So thank you, Poby, for showing us how to build Orianna. Thank you, Poby, for your laning phase. Thank you, Poby, that you can, destroy Abadaja in the laning phase, that you can get the better of him, that you can pull the trigger, that you can position well, that you are not getting caught, that you are actually laning well.
It's the reverse meme.
So some roads lead to him, and I think he's a great addition to the league. And I think he's in a way kind of top lane, that he's just very, very good. I guess Kana is just even a step above, because I feel like Kana is clearly the best in Europe when it comes to top lane. Poby, so far, I want to see him compete against, Jojo. I want to see him compete against Caps and so on. But yeah, I mean, he has been phenomenal this week 1 at least, and I can't wait to see more of him. He seems like a very likable guy. He seems like a great addition. He seems that him and Razor have a very similar language, and you saw them hugging behind the scenes when the camera was over Fnatic discussing that 1 game lose. So yeah, exciting, and I hope he does well, and I hope that Europe can welcome him, and I think we did. So exciting.
So it's funny because he seems like a very cheerful individual. So far, everyone that's interacted with him has said he's just a pleasant guy.
So I met the team manager backstage in Nisa. Player manager backstage, and she was saying that he has the best smile she's ever had, and then just showed me all these photos of him out for team dinners, and he's just got this big grin on his face. It's this guy just seems lovely. It's great.
My favorite part about today was we had Upset and Mickey in the hot tub doing an interview with them. And
Yeah, you guys didn't invite me. I couldn't believe it.
I mean, we would love to
I
have
didn't
you.
even get into the hot tub. I got 2 pairs of shorts with me.
That's great. But Poby just ran over and took a photo of them. And he was just like, "Ooh, that looks great." And they just left. So, no, he seems like a wonderful individual. And I hope that the vibes are good, because ultimately there's clearly some sort of like, curse is not the right word, but I would say that the vibes are bad, considering what's happened over recent history of Fnatic, and they needed to make a change. Honestly, I was expecting the change to come from the jungle. And so, like, as a jungler, yeah, I mean, that's where I expected it to happen, because quite frankly, like, I felt that Razork, his early games have always been very good, but in the mid game, it felt like that he became very indecisive. And so I'd love to kind of get, I mean, you have a lot of experience against him as a player. You've had a lot of opportunities to watch him. So, like, what are your current thoughts of Razork right now based on the very limited sample size that you have?
Yeah, I feel like the sample size is too small. I think Fnatic issue in mid game, in like the whole year, besides this week, is that they were very coin flippy. I think when Razor gets a lead, he's very good at snowballing and playing with a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
But I also feel like sometimes he's just very flippy, that the other side shows, where he doesn't get the same lead. His team necessarily has to play like a certain way in team fights, but he doesn't necessarily either understand that way or doesn't follow that way. And then he just goes too deep in fights, or he didn't get caught that much. Often he would just go too deep without necessarily understanding the combo or his purpose in games. I think that was like the most common mistake he was making throughout this year. So I think he looked a little bit, well, I mean, in that game against BDS, he didn't look that much. No, it was against Heretics, sorry.
Yes.
Against Heretics, he didn't look that much better. I feel like Shio was actually getting his number in those early games. He started a Dragon on Wukong that he should never start, or at least not at the timer he was starting it on. And, Heretics just like low-key walked in and stole it because, Fnatic couldn't really protect it, right? It was game 1, I believe.
Yeah.
Wukong against Nocturne. So I still feel like he's making those weird decisions where sometimes I don't fully understand it. And I'm watching the whole map, right? And I don't understand it. Maybe in the game for him it makes more sense. But I feel like he's still one of our top junglers just because he's good mechanically, and most of the time he knows how to get leads. Like, he has very good game sense. I feel like in a way I used to play in a similar style as he is. I used to rely a lot on my game sense and wouldn't always use 100% of my brain. And I think in a way he's doing the same thing. And hopefully Poby is gonna help him out, because clearly playing with Humanoid, I mean, it's not like Humanoid is bad or Razor is bad. It's just we saw this duo for so long and it just never really got a title, nor that relevant on like international stage, right? They went to Worlds a couple of times, but they never really did damage there, and they never got a title together. So maybe Razor and Poby, maybe Poby's gonna bring the Korean consistency and is gonna teach Razor what to do in some of these cases, and then Fnatic can grow stronger over time. For now, it was only week 1. Fnatic was always pretty good in regular season. They won as expected against weaker opponents. They were struggling a little bit against Team Heretics. I think Team Heretics got actually won that series. They wouldn't throw on the top tower, where Mickey found the amazing combo into Poby Orianna ult. Against SK was very dominant, but SK is looking pretty terrible right now. So we will see how it goes. I wish them a lot of luck. Poby seems very likable, and honestly, the whole Fnatic squad as individuals are very likable, and so is Grabs. So I wish them a lot of luck, but it's gonna be very tough. We have some good teams.
Surprise statement from
for our
Jankos.
standards.
Grabs, very likable. Was not expecting that to come out from Jankos' mouth. All right. Cool.
Do you saw the camera like losing focus? The camera just broke.
That was a swap into the AI video we've already prepared of Jankos. But I have to say, even just for Poby's sake, I am just glad he did well. Because my biggest worry was, like, he was 17 when he tried to jump into the T1 roster, and that was never going to be an easy setup for. You are a very young guy trying to replace the greatest player of all time. And obviously the memes were all there, and they were all ready and locked and loaded in Twitter drafts to just pump out the second he did badly. But I think he really did step up, and I think a lot of people now are just fully invested to see this guy succeed.
Yeah, and the other top team of the week was KC, currently sitting at the top of their group. What are your initial thoughts of their performance on week 1, Dagda?
Dodgy, to be honest. Like, it did not look particularly good. Because I cast them yesterday against Giant X, and I mean, to be fair, Giant X stepped up massively, but Giant X were definitely running that game. And it was only kind of the one or two oversteps, especially in game number 1, where they tried to over-invade on top side and Isma gets caught in the trundle, that kind of brought the game back. But yeah, I think for KC, I wasn't sold on kind of their early games. I think Yike struggled a little bit. I'm trying to remember the exact games now in my head, actually, as I'm saying it. But
day one, they had actually one of the fastest best of threes we've ever had.
Yeah, day one. Sorry, I was looking at the Giant X one.
Well, I guess who did they play that time? I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly.
They did have a number on Navi. Yeah, they completely demolished that game too. And game 1 was like competitive for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
but yeah, against Giants it wasn't so pretty, and I feel like they were making the same mistakes as they used to, which is sometimes in mid game, individually they get caught and are too far up when they can just chill and play as a team, and like all of them got caught at times. It wasn't just like one individual. So I think that's something they already did, and that's kind of how they lost some games to MKOI.
I think it's also it seems to me like they've got issues with communication on when they want to engage. I think this was kind of something that we saw a little bit with the Vi, but we got to see it with the Pantheon as well, where it's like clearly the call has been, we are going to go and take the fight. Yike presses or, and then everyone kind of goes, oh, actually, no. And then Yike is trying to flash away to get to a lantern to get the hell back out. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I can see sometimes at KC is like when they have enough, say like 20 seconds to be like, hey, we're going to set up, we're going to look for the engage, then their team fighting looks really good. But I think when it comes to the snap plays, there seems to be a lot of uncoordinated play on exactly how they want to go for it or whether they should go for it. I think that seems to be where they fumble, and that seems to happen a little bit in the early stages where there's just that disjointment on the team.
Interesting, because their day one performance for me was really clean. I thought the way that they built leads and then snowballed the leads was very well done.
Yeah.
And so then the contrast to day 2 where we did see those early game issues, I'm aligned with you where they kind of surprised me. I thought that they had kind of used this offseason to fix some of those issues. Of course, it is just the start of the split. But Jankos, do you have any other like additional thoughts on KC and then moving forward?
No, I mean, I think they hopefully, I mean, they're still a young team, right? So it's always an excuse to say that, but in the end, top 3 teams go to Worlds, and I think they will be in top 3 teams. I'm not sure which team out of the Fnatic, KC, MKOI, and G2 will not be there, but I think KC will be there. That's my take, at least for now. But yeah, they do need to fix some of their early game planning and some of their just decision making to be more cohesive in mid game.
That's fair. All right, so some things to work on for KC, a little bit more critical than what we've said about Fnatic. Of course, we did talk about how the KC side of the group is overall tougher, right? Our expectations are that with GX, KOI, and KC on that side of the bracket, those 3 should just increase the level of the group. And I think we're already getting a taster of that because GX, they started off the week pretty promising, a pretty solid 2-0. A little bit messy at times, for sure.
Yeah.
But a really solid start from GX. So I want to start with you, Jankos. When you saw GX play this weekend, what were your takes and what... Because, I mean, we heard all about the Scrim team gods, right? So where's your basis on GX right now?
Yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I think they play better macro. They have better early games overall. Like Isma seems to be leading them in the early games with June. I think the synergy between these 2 is much better. And I think they have like a clearer idea on what they want to draft and how they want to play the game. I think like Noah overall is most of the time solid, at least in regular season. And I also think Lot is stepping up. I feel like I'm going to be honest, like I was not a fan of him when he came in the league, but I think he's playing much better, at least for these games that they had, especially against Vitality. So I'm hoping that the team itself is gonna grow and we will have like a top 5 contender, you know what I mean, and that's gonna make our other team stronger as well. But yeah, exciting times, you know. I think Isma was still getting caught a little bit too much and going too deep at times, trying to face check when his team was not around. But these kind of things happen because of stress, and the more you play together and the more chill you are, the more it can improve, right?
Yeah.
So we will see how it goes.
Yeah, I think the part that impressed me the most was kind of both Lot and Jackie's Not like Jackie's has always been pretty good, but I think he's really stepped up as well. But specifically on how they play out their side lanes in the kind of the early to mid game has been really, really impressive. Like they're really good at using, like, especially Lot to use TPs to catch waves that then in the future set up for a play in like a minute to a minute and a half's time. And I think that's been the part that I've been most impressed in, because when we look back at even like winter, the start of spring, it not only would they not understand how to do that correctly, they'd kind of blow summoners or blow TPs in weird places. They'd also then end up getting caught on being overextended in a lane because they just TP'd where they shouldn't have. So the fact that they've really stepped up on that has kind of been the most impressive part for me. And it's clearly been something they've been working on in the off season. And it's really cool to see now we get to see the scrim gods, but that kind of pay off now that they've got to the main stage.
My biggest issue with them is mainly that they still seem disconnected at times to me. Like the Artican was a great example where Jackie's was just making his own play, which I don't think was an inherently bad play, but the rest of the team is starting to Artican. And so now you've got two plays happening on opposite sides of the map, and it's just making it harder for them to really gain control of everything. And then the fight ends up chaotic, and then the enemy team, Vitality, actually start getting kills back, and how it's turning into chaos. And so that's for me is where I'm still looking at GX that I would like to see them shore up, because that sort of, I say disconnect, Jankos, maybe you can provide more insight. Like when you're in that situation where maybe you as a person see a good play, so you go for it, but then you realize that like your team is doing something else. How do you feel like these situations kind of happen, and how does it make these sort of chaotic situations on the map?
I mean, I assume that the call was just made, like specifically talking about that situation to just close out on it. Like, I think the call was made to do Atakan, and Jackie just realized that enemy AD carry Karzi is just, oh my god, Karzi, I don't even want that. I don't know if I even want to talk about Vitality, because that was just so, for the first time, I just closed my stream for like 1 minute to take a breather after I witnessed what was going on. But they were so bad. They were actually oh my god. Okay, anyway, Karzi died to Azir face checking. To Karzi face check Azir. Azir killed him. And in that situation, you just had to wait for Azir to arrive without engaging too far.
Yeah.
Isma went onto Cassante. Cassante queued him, pulled him over a wall, and then they couldn't smite Atakan because of it, and then it became very chaotic. I think in that time, if Isma doesn't queue in and just keeps range and stays on Atakan and waits for Jackies to join, I still think that situation is going to be good for them, because there is no way situation can be bad when you kill enemy AD carry and you're joining and you are still, So I think that, but in these moments, you just have to trust players' judgment to be correct. If Jackies decided to go into a jungle and wait for Karzi and he knew he's going to kill him, then you need to trust his judgment. That is a good play, and you need to play accordingly. So in that case, you either leave the Atakan and then you restart it, or maybe you just get tempo lead from pushing mid and then you restart it in 1 minute, or you just keep the Atakan pulled, you slowly do it, and you wait, make sure that Jackies can join within the next 5-10 seconds after killing Lucian in the jungle. So you just gotta trust your team's judgment. And I'm sure that the call was made and it was supposed to be a team call, and I'm not sure if Jackies communicated what he did or if he didn't, but I think the team didn't necessarily play accordingly, and that's why it became so chaotic. I think the Jackies play per se in that moment was a good, and sometimes player just has a good, like players needs to sometimes make a good judgment in the moment.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm thinking about, we talked a little bit about Fnatic. We don't have to go super deep on Vitality, but clearly your first impressions weren't the most positive, Jankos, which is fun to hear.
I mean,
go on.
Okay, just do very close, like very briefly, like Karzi melee ranging everything in the game, Chayek TPing in face of 2 people inting, Flashy running it down on cooldown. I don't know if there is any, like Nagnako, good job, you played well. You played solid. Nagnako, you have a +5. Thank you. And Linkas, I think, was decent. So that's it. That's all I have. I mean, it was very hard to watch. And we had this tournament and a no cap. I don't know if you guys like followed that one, but there were like tier 2 teams playing as tier 1 teams, and the tier 1 teams was Vitality, SK. And SK maybe not so much. They didn't look as solid, but Vitality made fun of every single tier 2 team that was at the tournament. But this gameplay that they showcased here was so disgusting. So that's such a big gap between tier 2 and tier 1, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sure, maybe we didn't have, like, probably Los Ratons are the best as they won EU Masters twice, but like BK Rogue was there, which was the finalist, and they were just disgusting compared to Vitality. And then Vitality was disgusting compared to GX. So that just makes you think about the gap, like how big the gap can be.
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, damn. Right. Well, strong thoughts about Vitality. Unless you have anything strong you want to say about Vitality,
No,
All right.
I think Jankos covered
Yeah,
it.
somebody. Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job. All right. The only other teams we do need to mention are BDS and SK. Now, we don't have to go on too long about SK because I imagine that you won't have a lot of nice things to say, Jankos. So let's start with BDS. Perhaps is there anything that stands out to you from them that maybe you're excited about or maybe you're not as excited about?
BDS?
Yeah.
No, I am not excited. Like, nah, they like. I mean, okay, so BDS is clearly better than SK.
Yeah.
And maybe better than Vitality. I cannot say for sure, but game one, right, where they got 2 solo kills, bot lane, and then 1 mid lane, and then nothing was happening because they were so disconnected. And I think they were playing towards the wrong side of the map when they could just give vision to Aurora that was winning side lane. Unless I read the game wrong, and unless Aurora doesn't win against the right side. But I feel like they could use 1 turn to enable Aurora, who then would get pressure, who soon would get to give pressure.
So I don't mean to interrupt you.
Like
sorry, Jankos. It's just that watching you is so funny to me because as casters, like we often doubt ourselves when we watch certain games play, and it's so great for me to witness a man who's won an MSI title question his own understanding of the game when he's watching some teams play League of Legends, because what you're experiencing right now is what we experience too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like casters have like a pretty good idea because you guys watch so many games, right? You watch internationals, you watch, you watch like LCK, you watch LAC and so on. So I feel like casters actually do have a good idea very often. And yeah, when teams are hard to watch, the general public can even tell that the team is not very good, right? Yeah. And I feel like for BDS at least, it felt to me like they are actually not cohesive at all, and they just don't know what to do in the game. It just feels like they don't want to take any fights. They're either shaking. I don't know what was that, what I felt against SK. But to me, if Nuke wouldn't make this like 1v9 play where he insect Azir and they got Baron out of it, they wouldn't even win that game 1 against SK. And game 2 didn't look much better either. I honestly don't even remember it that much. I think Fnatic is going to stomp them 2-0 next week. I would be surprised if they don't.
Okay.
So yeah, BDS is not really looking good, right? They got their new Korean top laner and their new jungler, but they are not looking much better. They are looking pretty meh in my opinion. Like I can't even think about one positive thing that I would mention about them. Like maybe there was something, right? But I don't know.
The surprise for
maybe
me
Dagda has something.
Is it? I think
Dagda,
it really shows how important Sheo was to BDS because they were consistently a top team in the league for about a year, maybe even 2, and they were constantly fighting for top 3. And now you see the impact that Sheo has on Heretics. It makes you realize that exactly what you're talking about, where like kind of that decision maker, the person that makes things happen, that kind of brings the team together. It just doesn't seem to be there for them right now.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because I think the reason they wanted Bukata was to try and be that voice because he can have a pretty standard or stable, it meant early game, and then kind of lean into, hey, we can look for what was our core of take the team fight out the objective. But yeah, I think you're seeing basically that's what Sheo has done with Heretics, which is bring it in. He looks fantastic in the early game. He's getting early leads for them. And oftentimes it is a case of, well, we have set up well for, in theory, they're trying to set up well for a team fight that is going to win them the game, right? So it kind of shows you that Sheo was that identity for the team. And just trying to bring that back now is not really working. Now, to give it due, it is only week 1.
Yeah.
So they still have time, and it's still an opportunity for Rooster and Bukata to kind of fit in with the team.
Yeah.
And I still think, like, as you were saying, I think Nuke is still a very strong player. Ice is still a very good player. I think they do have the firepower to make things work. It's just about getting that team cohesion.
Very much agree. So moving into next week, we've got some pretty crazy matches. In terms of the schedule, to remind our fans at home, there's only 2 days of LEC next week, Saturday and Sunday. So Jankos, you get a day off, hopefully, next week. But we've got some pretty banger games, and we'll get to see the reintroduction of G2 and KOI to the league. So I want to talk a little bit about these teams and their matchups. Let's start with G2, because they're only playing 1 best-of-3 next week. They're going up against Heretics. Jankos, what are the rumblings you've been hearing about G2 behind the scenes? What are your expectations for them coming into their first week of the LEC?
I mean, I think them and MKOI took more time off, right?
Yeah.
As they had 2 tournaments to attend. So I'm not really sure how much time they had to practice. I feel like BB is actually trying to like step up a lot now and playing the champs that we would assume he doesn't play, like Rumble, for example, right? Like he didn't really play at the Messiah and then he pulled it out at EWC, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna be a banger. I feel like Heretics is one of those teams that you can never really count out because yeah, they do throw some games, but they also crawl bug in some games, and they are just never really. I feel like they have a lot of willpower in them. You know, they are never really giving up. They always find like these peaks, and they always are trying to win games. And I think they are like one of the best top 6 teams we had ever in a way. You know, like they are always. Like when you see them going as top team, you think to yourself they can actually put. It's very low chance, but they can actually pull through. They can actually win, and I think that, considering Team Heretics already played on stage this week and G2 didn't, and they had like these like couple of weeks off, maybe we can have a competitive BO3, and I think we will. And I think it's going to be very exciting. I think every time these teams went head to head this year, it was super banging games.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't cover EWC ourselves, Dagda, but obviously our expectations are, I would say, kind of low for G2 based on what we saw at MSI. They were disappointing. And I know that they did step up a little bit more when it came to EWC because they did get that. They got that series off of BLG, right, Jankos?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really watch either, but I saw some results, and yeah, he played the Rumble, I think, and they won against BLG. Yeah.
But eyes are going to be on this team a lot, I think, this split, because there are a lot of expectations that just come with the G2 brand. They've been in back-to-back finals this year, don't actually have a title to their name yet this year, and still a lot of question marks surrounding their support and jungle, which I think are going to be the matchups to keep our eyes on coming into the Heretics matchup.
Yeah, I think the one saving grace for both G2 and MKOI is that I don't feel like the meta has changed massively from MSI. So in trying to get used to the patch, I think it's kind of like, hey, look, you can take the time off, but it's kind of what you've already been practicing, which does help. So I think that'll help in hitting the ground running. But I think G2 really do need to have a look at themselves and say like, okay, well, how do we want to try and approach things? Because clearly what they've been trying to do isn't working. And I think a lot of that is coming from the jungle support, not being able to link up, not being able to find the success they would in fights and how they approach objectives. And I think it's starting to influence the rest of the team. Now, again, I didn't watch EWC, so I don't have the VODs to be like, hey, look, they did this right, or this was the improvement that we saw from MSI. But yeah, I think this is the lowest expectation I've had of G2 coming into any split that I can remember, honestly, like basically since they got into the league. So I think, yeah, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle. Maybe the fact that, you know, we're starting to see BB, because we always saw in solo queue, Broken Blade was always able to play the Jason the Rumble. Like he had good win rates, he was spamming them. So clearly he had these champions, but maybe this is a sign that G2 are willing to let things loose a little bit and say, hey, look, let's try and trust some of these players, or maybe we're not going to try and cater for jungle support as much anymore. We're going to let BB be a carry. We're going to let them do these things that we haven't in the past, and maybe that will open up a bit of an avenue for them. But yeah, I think until they show and prove that they belong with the big boys, I think it is going to be kind of contesting for that third, fourth spot, where it's KC and MKOI contesting for 1-2.
Interesting. Yeah. Super interesting. All right, well, last but not least, KOI. They've got a tough weekend ahead of them. They're playing up against GX on Saturday, immediately into KC on Sunday. So in theory, the two toughest matchups in their group. Jankos, run me through your expectations for KOI. I mean, you've got data on GX and KC now, but obviously there's not much that you know of KOI. So tell me, what are your expectations? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, like I said, I didn't watch WC, and at the MSI they didn't do so well, but they were very good in spring playoffs, right? They had a solid meta read. They played together. They seemed to have an answer to every meta pick on every position. Supa was stepping up a lot along, the rest, like everybody really. So I expect to have really good games. Unfortunately, I can't really have a big take on MKOI because I just have no information from scrims, no information from... I don't even know when they started practicing again, you know what I mean? Like, sure, we mentioned that like the meta didn't change, and I agree that they can pretty much play the same champions as they used to at the MSI, and they did play against the MSI team, so technically they should be strong. But even if you don't play League for a week or two, and then you start practicing, you still are gonna play much worse than when you're like on this mega grind, like weeks after week after week playing the game. So I'm hoping that they will show up the way they did in the finals, in playoffs in spring. And I think if they do, they will actually win both series. Is it gonna be a clean 2-0? I don't really think so, because I think GX and KC are also stepping up, and KC definitely learning from the mistakes they did to lose against MKOI twice in a BO5. And then for GX, at least they are on upward trend, and I'm sure they will have a lot of confidence from their win today against Vitality. So next week is gonna be insane. I think the games are just so good.
My expectations are actually very high for MKOI. I was overall very impressed with Jojo on the international stage. We mentioned this last week on EUphoria, but Alvaro, I think, is just, he was phenomenal at MSI.
He's so good, man.
And I think that he's continued to prove himself, and the bot lane. Yeah. And it was something you mentioned last week, Dagda, that really resonates with me, is that last year when they came back from Worlds and we saw them at the very beginning of winter this year, they individually, it just felt like they were all playing so much better, and it was clear that they took so much away from what they learned at Worlds that they were able to improve on. And then clearly there were just some synergy issues that they ran into as the teams around them were beginning to get better. But my expectations are, this is a team that clearly learns well. They put into practice. Also, they're good at practicing and then putting it into place on stage. And so I'm optimistic that they will come in well prepared, getting that week to watch what both these teams have played. Preparation was the biggest thing for them during playoffs. And so I'm very optimistic for this team coming into week 2.
Yeah, and I think they're also, at least in my eyes, externally the hungriest team. Like, they feel like the team that wants it the most, where they are constantly grinding, putting in that effort. You can see, like, the man Miran was when he entered the league into the man that Miran, and the player that Miran is now, is just night and day. Like, there are so many members on this team that have just stepped up massively. Like, we already alluded to Supa as well. Like, that man is a massive, massive threat from the bot lane. And I think that's where, like, for me, I think MKOI is the favorite to take the first place in this group. The biggest issue that I see is kind of what Jankos was saying, is like, it nearly feels a bit unfair. You're coming back and immediately you've had the week off, but you're immediately coming into your 2 hardest matchups when you're only trying to get back into the swing of things. So I think even if, like, I expect them to do well, but even if they lose this doesn't lessen my opinion of MKOI. I still think by the time we hit later on in playoffs, they are still going to be the team that was winning the split, right? And I think at this stage, it feels like MKOI is the team to beat. And I think a lot of that, I think, is kind of coming off of seeing the struggles that KC had in their second series. Obviously, series 1, fantastic, but in the second series. So I think for MKOI have kind of shown that they can be quite consistent, quite good. Individual members stepping up. And I think, again, this is a team that just learns so effectively whenever they go to these internationals. And I think that's my favorite part about watching this team, is like, it always feels like, I don't, like, you're the anime guy, but it feels like an anime where they go in and they're like, oh yeah, we lose to this guy, but we've absorbed part of the power. And now we're going to power up ourselves, right? And that's kind of how I look at the squad. And it's cool to see how much they have leveled up over the few years that they've been here.
Yeah, I think that's super fair. The thing that stands out for me is because, like, I think we can all agree that probably the must-watch matchup is probably going to be that match of the week between KOI and KC. Yeah. Early game, that was the biggest standout for me when it comes to KC. Jankos, do you think that, I mean, Elyoya won Finals MVP. Do you feel like he is for sure the type of player that will punish if you do have a weaker early game?
Yes, I think Elyoya is very smart. So I think that he can make plans in order to have secure KOI's early game. I was not very impressed with him. You guys mentioned like the players that really did well at MSI. I think Elyoya didn't really. Like, 100%. I don't think he was staying out at all at MSI. I think he had a pretty poor tournament. Yeah. But I feel like overall he is like always up there when we discuss the best junglers in Europe. So I do think he can make it happen for MKOI this upcoming weekend. That being said, one thing he mentioned before he got the MVP of the finals is that they couldn't work harder than they did, that they like grinded so much, or that they worked so hard at the MKOI. That's why they won Spring Split. That's something that him and Jojo said in the interview after they won. And for me, the question is, if they work so hard, how did this break impact them, right? Because yes, like I completely don't disagree with your takes that they will be still one of the top teams in Europe for sure, and in the playoffs coming out, they're going to be inside. But how much can the break impact them for this weekend only? And I think I could be wrong here, but I kind of remember that I think in the BO5s against KC, I think they were 1-2 down, and then KC would lose 2 in a row twice. But I might be wrong with this. Maybe it happened only once. I'm not sure if any of you guys can correct me or not. But either way, I think AOI is a type of a guy who actually plans a lot, who is very consistent, who has his game plans. So I think when it comes to abusing KC's early game, he will be the guy that you could trust that he will make it happen. And also domestically, he is pretty much always performing very well. Like when he's performing well, the team is doing so well. When he's not performing well, you can actually like see the difference. So I hope he shows up and we are going to see a banger between these two teams.
So just to give you a quick info, they lost game 1 versus KC, won the next 2, lost game 4 and won game 5. Yeah.
I was wrong. Yeah. Good that you told me. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've discussed all of the teams. Jankos, I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us about what you're doing right now, your plans for the future, and also just sharing your insight on the league. For viewers at home that have stuck around for the entirety of the podcast, thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in hearing more about Jankos' analysis, he covers every LEC game. Am I correct in saying that, Jankos?
Every LEC game, yes. Every LEC game and hopefully every international game as well.
He's hoping. And you can check him out on twitch.tv/Jankos. So Jankos, I really want to give you a big thank you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
That's going to do it for the EUphoria episode 16. Thank you so much to Dagda, as always, for joining us every single week. And a big shout out to Jankos. If you want to send him some love, make sure you drop a comment down below or go check out his channels and send some support. But of course, this episode wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, ExpressVPN. You can head over to expressvpn.com/LEC to get your 14-day free trial right now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for checking us out. We will see you next week. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.